Every woman deserves to feel vibrant, safe, loved, and feel her power. The Woman's Vibrancy Code podcast is here for a potent use of your time. We will cover energy, hormones, and libido with episodes that also dive into entrepreneurship, money mindset, feminine power, and much, much more. Introducing Maraya Brown, Yale and functional medicine trained women's health expert, midwife, mom, and entrepreneur.
Now we get to do a deep dive into libido out loud, feeling passion for your life, your lover, and yourself. So I want to say out loud that yes, this is a conversation around sensuality and sexuality. It's also a conversation around manifesting abundance, feeling excited about the life that you're living, bringing in more love. Okay. It's all of it. I have one of the Women's Vibrancy Code Master Coaches coming on today, a guest sexologist. So we're going to get into some fun conversations. And I want you to really spend some time thinking about and feeling into what it is that we're talking about. Okay. This is one of those that sometimes make people feel a little uncomfortable, maybe a little bit triggered. Remember that we are here to learn and to take action and understand, but we also need to feel and heal. And sometimes it just goes to addressing foundational safety. So in conversations that can sometimes be triggering or make people feel uncomfortable, sometimes the filtration system goes up in extra armor and you might not hear everything. So this is one of those I really encourage you to be present, listen in, and maybe come back. Listen again in a little bit. The womb or the root, this base part of our body, our pelvic region knows, our intuition knows, our heart listens, and our throat speaks. As a midwife, it's always fascinating as I have held space for hundreds of women giving birth. And when they open their throat and they let the sound come out in a low, soft, powerful space, the cervix opens. Okay. There is a strong connection there. And this root space, our pelvic region, our sensuality, our power is the place where abundance is manifested. Okay. So if you are one of those where you are hungry for more abundance of love, belonging, money, time, orgasms, whatever it is, we go to this root place to go to the deep foundational place of safety, the place of pleasure. Okay. So for those of you that are already multitasking, I encourage you to come be present. Today is not a day for little ears. So if you have children in the background, I encourage you to grab earbuds. And I want to say out loud once again that I'm proud of you for showing up. So we spoke a lot around the stress response, fight, flight, or freeze, and the relationship between our stress and adrenals. I want to say out loud, high vigilance equals low arousal. Low vigilance equals high arousal, meaning the more we can settle into our space of foundational safety, calm, addressing our foundational needs, connecting with nature, connecting with our breath, that's where arousal comes in. And arousal is, yes, from the perspective of sensuality, but also from the perspective of feeling turned on by your life. So if you're looking for more energy, let's work on how allowing your arousal to rise in regard to your life. I want to talk a little bit about my story. So one of the things you'll find in my space is we talk about a lot of kind of taboo topics. Sometimes I say things that are bold, sometimes they're jaw-dropping, and it's always in a safe container, particularly if you end up coming within the infrastructure of the Women's Vibrancy Code. You'll hear from some of the women, and we talk about stuff that some women are like, wow, I've never said these things out loud. And part of that is because I think of my life, my story. I grew up in a very unconventional upbringing. My father was Jewish. My stepmother was Christian. My mother was Buddhist. And then there was a part of connected to the Rajneesh community out in Eastern Oregon. And I grew up with no stories around shame or guilt in regard to sensuality, our bodies, that kind of thing. And so I have that background, and I've attended lots and lots of births where women are naked in Haiti and Ghana and Hawaii and Oregon. And I mean, just like fully expressing themselves. Plus, I've done thousands of pap smears and been in the space with, as a women's health provider, hearing women share their intimate stories. Okay. Plus, I'm a mom. I've had a miscarriage. I've given birth to 3 babies myself. They're all home births and really ecstatic births. They were phenomenal experiences. I also have struggled from sexual abuse as a child. So although I felt really open and there wasn't necessarily this early guilt and shame that I hear from a lot of women that were kind of put on them, I didn't have that, but there was definitely a betrayal of safety from early, like inappropriate touch. And one of the things that you'll learn as you're in my space is our sexuality, our femininity comes from our feminine power, and we receive in the feminine power, right? But we have to receive from something that's giving, and that giving is the masculine. And so as I've done a journey into my relationship with my sensuality, I had to acknowledge that there was definitely a wounded relationship with my masculine, my father figure growing up. It never felt safe to receive. Okay. I didn't grow up in one of those scenarios where I felt particularly cared for or loved. And so because of that, I learned to do it all myself, control things, be the overachiever, do it all by white knuckling it. And I didn't necessarily care so much what people thought of me, but there was no way I was going to allow myself to ask for help or let my guard down to let someone in. And it's been spectacular to be able to start letting the guard down and allow myself to receive. Part of that is I found a great partner, my husband. We have a lovely relationship that continues to grow. I got to work through body image stuff and allow myself to really be seen and stop being in the overdoing. And what's fascinating is what I've watched transpire is the abundance that's come in, abundance of belonging, abundance of self-confidence, abundance of financial wealth, abundance of friendships that feel deep and loving, abundance of creative and new ways of having orgasms, all of it. Okay. And so I just want to start with that to say we are talking about this because you're listening to this through your own lens. I imagine your story in some way might relate to mine, might feel totally different. But your childhood, your stories, your relationship with your sensuality and your sexuality, your relationship with your intuition and core safety, your relationship with your ability to lean back and receive all has a lot to do, it's all related. Okay. So once again, when we get to do the work to heal that womb space, allow our heart to open, our womb knows, our heart listens, and then our voice speaks. And so are you speaking your truth? Okay. Are you speaking your truth, not worrying about how it's interpreted or how, where it lands, but just simply that you're heard. Okay. And that relates to your sensuality. And when I say libido, I say, I want you to be turned on by your life, your lover, and yourself. So we get to do a deep dive into, well, are you inspired by your career and how you're spending your days? And are you filling up your own cup? Okay. What does your relationship look like and feel like? Are you single right now? Are you married? What is your relationship? What are the dynamics? And within a journey with me, we start unraveling this and doing a deeper dive into healing the wounded feminine, the wounded masculine, the aspects of relationship so that we can feel more turned on. And what comes first, the chicken or the egg? I have no idea. But today we get to talk about libido. We'll talk about some nitty gritty. Do you easily receive? Do you feel strong in your sexuality, your sensuality? Do you feel like you're actively attracting the abundance that you know that you deserve? And the worthiness stories show up. Stories around guilt show up when we have this conversation. But what I know is when we dig in and do the work, now, of course, there's also the libido. Like, yes, we're going to talk about the hormones and vaginal dryness. And, you know, it has your testosterone crash. So you just simply don't want to be touched, or you simply overworked and you're a breastfeeding mama and you feel overtouched and you're sleep deprived and you don't want to be touched. Okay. Well, that's valid too. And there are solutions, I promise. Okay. The more we start looking through the lens of pleasure, appreciation, gratitude, it shifts what our reticular activating system filters in. So, and all of a sudden, you'll start seeing through eyes of pleasure. And you'll start feeling more sensual in your body just based on what it is that you're looking at, what you're smelling when you have your aromatherapy close by, what you're feeling, what you're listening to. Okay, remember we talk about within the energy conversation, change a state with changing the music. Okay, can you see how all of this continues to tie together? All relevant, it's all related. Energy, hormones, libido, power, connection, career, abundance, okay? Nutrition, supplementation, somatic work in the body, mindset work, trauma release. Okay, I see Eva on, so I'm going to honor her time. Here we have it. Hi.
Hi there.
I'm
Hi.
so happy to have you here and to have a good, lovely, juicy conversation.
I can't wait. My favorite thing to talk about is libido.
Okay, good. Okay, so Eva is one of the guest master coaches within the Women's Vibrancy Code, and I'm so grateful to have her here. Let me read her bio because it's important that you all get to edify her so that you go, oh, this is really worth listening into. She's an LCSW, an acclaimed sexologist with decades of experience, and a psychotherapist. And she calls herself a professional troublemaker whose mission is to illuminate the menage a trio of soul, sex, and science. Her work is an elegant marriage of the profound and the playful. And as a former professor of neuroscience in the UC system, she bodaciously reminds us that smart is sexy.
Yes.
She's helped thousands of women unlock the keys to lasting love and passion, and is a Woman's Vibrancy Code Master Coach. Hi, Eva.
Hi, Maraya. I'm so honored to be here.
All right, well, let's just dig right in because I really want to honor your time and also honor the time for the women that are listening. So I see women who are exhausted, some from hormones or inflammation or from stress or being overworked, and they just don't know where to even fit in. They don't know where to fit in desire or the conversation around desire. So can you start out with just saying, like, what do you say to women who have lost their passion for their lives, themselves, and they just feel like they're at a loss to even start having this conversation?
Absolutely. I work with this all the time, and it's very common. And if you're relating to that experience, just know that you're not alone. And number one, I think that even the topic of desire, even the word desire is pretty loaded. It's heavy. And often when we think about how do I get the passion back? How do I reconnect with my desire? There's a sense of overwhelm about that, about how to do that. When in actuality, I want to encourage you to really break it down. The little bit that I heard you talk about just now, Maraya, about the simple pleasures in life, and understand that desire, passion, and libido is a practice. It's a daily practice. We really have a lot of misinformation and mythology about libido, sexuality, and desire in our culture. And I believe primarily because it's a patriarchal culture and that we should have desire like men have desire, that it should be big and bold and loud and intense. But for women, I want to encourage you to anchor into the subtlety of desire. And to me, that's really where the juice is. Neurochemically, that's really where the juice is also. So if you're looking to find the time to re-engage desire, I encourage you to take like 10 seconds and dot these little, what I call desire moments throughout your day. So for example, before you eat, let's say you've made a beautiful meal or you're just having eggs for breakfast or whatever that is, pause for a moment, take a breath, look at your food and feel the desire you have for that food before you eat it. And before you know it, as you begin to dot in these desire moments through your day, you're going to find that desire begins to proliferate and to amplify in your life, and it's going to show up in the bedroom. So can you dial down the intensity and the pressure of desire and make it a micro practice, a subtle micro practice?
I love you say to take the pressure off.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think so often we do, and it's, I think of it as kind of more being in our masculine space, overperforming, whether it's worthiness or just busyness, but to be able to take the pressure off and allow the spaciousness for the micro dosing of desire and pleasure for the day.
Microdose desire. Yes, absolutely. Because, I appreciate you bringing that linear orientation in, because we think about, oh God, I need to get my desire and my passion back. How am I going to do that? So we're still in that like doing mode. Like, how am I going to accomplish that? When in actuality, that linear masculine mode of trying to achieve desire or achieve passion is in fact what's killing it.
Mm.
So particularly for women, it's when we can connect with the feminine energies regarding desire, when we can lean back and actually begin to receive the pleasure in our life, to receive the food that you eat, to receive the love from your children or your partner, to receive everything. And that means leaning back and looking at the world with new eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do it that way, it feels better, then you want more.
I know I even want to lean back, but then I have this damn phallic microphone that I have to keep my mouth closed. I want to lean back. Okay. So what about for the women who they have strong desire, but they're actually feeling unfulfilled in their sexual relationships, their loving relationship, their career, their creation of abundance? I mean, I feel like it's all related. So, but let's narrow it down just for this conversation. They have desire, but they're unfulfilled in their sexual relationships.
Yes. Again, very common to hear this. And no surprise, because who's getting sex education? Like nobody, really. And where are our partners getting their sex education? Your partner gets their sex education from you. And so when a woman is unfulfilled, it to me indicates there might be somewhere that she's not expressing her full desire, or she's not expressing it in a way that can be heard and played with. So half of the work that I do is training women how to express your needs and your desires in a way that is inviting and playful and sexy, and that will get a yes from your partner. And underneath that is anchoring in the worthiness. You brought that word in. I think that's the bottom line of everything, is that you are worthy of receiving your desire. So sometimes we don't ask for what we want or what we need, because deep down there's a subconscious script that marriage should be unfulfilling. Sex should end when you have babies. So we need to look at those subliminal programs that are still in operation and work with those to get that unblocked and out of the way of you using your voice to advocate for yourself.
Mm-hmm. This last week, when I kind of went more deeply into meditation, the big thing that kept coming to me is the womb knows, the heart listens, and the voice speaks. Mm. And I feel like you're reiterating that in your own words, but there's this strong connection between the throat and the yoni, the cervix, the opening. Mm-hmm. And I have this, I imagine that, well, I know that as we deepen and expand our receiving space, our sensuality, then inevitably we feel more confident to speak our voice, and we speak it with more prowess, and we look the lioness in the mirror. And part of me goes, it's not important how it's received. It's just that we're speaking our voice. But I imagine the nuances in regard to relationships probably.
It's important.
So talk a little bit about a woman finding her voice and also doing it in a way where it can be received within a sexual relationship.
Yeah. Oh, I love this question, because yes, it does matter. To me, it happens in steps. Okay. So I have a system that I teach, and I love to teach this in the Women's Vibrancy Code. So by joining this program, you're really going to get a deep dive in how to do this. This is an art and a science. Number one, really unlocking what I call your desire field. So many women don't even know what they want because we've been acculturated. Our systems, our political systems, everything around us is entraining women out of knowing what they want, because women are much easier to control when we don't know. We're much easier to sell to. We're better consumers when we don't know what we want. So just know that there are all these forces bearing in on you that are disengaging you from your desire. So we need to reconnect that for you. And when you do reconnect with your desire field, oh my gosh, the world opens up. Mm-hmm. It's your navigational system. How will you get anywhere in life if you don't know what you want?
Yeah.
So that's step one. And then step 2 is developing the courage and the resiliency to get ready to speak that desire. And that happens at the level of the nervous system. So understand we've had eons of suppression of the feminine voice and literally the threat of violence or death at using it. So you have codes written inside of your body that say, don't speak up or else you will die. You will be harmed. You will be under threat. Your children will be under threat. So we also have to undo that and unblock that and talk to your nervous system and assure it that you're actually safe to speak your desire. So in the Women's Vibrancy Code, what I teach is a combination of breath, of movement, of visualization, of mantra, and practice, just simply using the voice for innocuous things. The third step is then offering your request in a way that is honoring to yourself and to the receiver of your request, in a way that is strategic and skillful. Words are a science. And I like to teach women how to use their words scientifically to engender empathy and a deeper connection with the person you're making the request to. So we don't want to start a fight because we ask for sex in a different way. That's the last thing we want. We actually want more depth and passion and play. So in the Women's Vibrancy Code, that's what I teach. It's how to offer that.
And it's so juicy. It's so good. I'm so grateful for you. And I hear this question of what do you want? And, you know, we can go out in the world and I want that and I want that and all the things that are marketed to us. But then it sounds like, what do you desire? Like to really allow us each to get into what is it that I desire to create in my life? How do I desire to feel? And in this context, when you start going, oh my gosh, I'm leaning in, I'm loving this information. Do I desire this? And I imagine there's feelings of nervousness too, and fear of, well, what happens if I allow myself to desire it? And what happens if I actually look the lioness in the mirror and I allow myself to receive? And now it's there and I actually have to receive it.
Yes. Thanks for bringing that in, because a lot of times women are afraid to name their desires because then they will feel the desire and they're afraid of it not being fulfilled. And that's heartbreaking. It's disappointing. So I'd like to do a little paradigm shift around desire and to actually use desire in a tantric way, to enjoy your desire for that ice cream cone before you take a lick, to desire a hot shower or bath at the end of the day, and allow yourself to begin enjoying the sensation of desire. And if you don't know what you desire and you feel kind of stumped about that, and all you can think of is like, I want $1 million, I want to win the lottery, these kind of surface things, then a really good place to start is, I desire to feel my desire.
I love it. And it's safe to feel my desire.
And it's safe to feel my desire. Yes, that is creative energy. Desire is your creative life force. It makes the world go round. Desire truly does for women.
And especially as you were talking about step 3, or was it step 2, the nervous system and the courage. So often desire and courage and safety feel like they're so intertwined. And if our foundational nervous system has been wound up in fight, flight, or freeze for a long, long time, seems like unwinding that a little bit so that we can get to core safety almost as a precursor to allowing ourselves to even acknowledge the desire. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Yeah. And, if you're mothering multiple children or even one, and you're in survival mode and you're just barely getting the kids out the door to school in the morning, or you're, working a corporate job 8 to 5 every day, like we're a lot of us are stuck in survival mode, and especially now in these times, so it's really difficult to access desire from that place of survival. So what I would recommend is, again, micro moments. So when you do have a minute to take a shower or a bath and you're just having like 20 seconds to savor the feel of the warm water on your skin, take a deep breath and get in touch with one desire you have, even if it's like for a nap, and then you can start building that. And desire is a muscle. And the more you become aware of it, but at the level of the nervous system, we also need to educate the nervous system that it will survive if you don't get that desire fulfilled. Because that often is a big block. Women will say, I don't even want to know what I desire because I know it's never going to happen. So why even open that door? And so we also want to build in the resiliency of like, oh, I desire a nanny. I desire a live-in nanny. Take a deep breath and let yourself feel that desire. Because guess what, ladies? That is the first step of your manifestation process also. So you can't bring anything into your life if you don't know you even want it.
Right. And I imagine it's so quick to, well, I want that, but really I don't need it. And there's all the guilt and we talk.
I can't afford it.
Right. Versus like maybe it feels totally outlandish, but why not allow yourself to feel the desire?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I want to leave you with one tool on this topic. And it's what we call a sentence stem. And I think that these are real magic. There's gold in this. I have a desire to, and fill in the blank. And you can begin to use the sentence stem even when it comes to your lovemaking. So whether you're fully raring with your passion and you feel unfulfilled, or you're like, you don't know where your passion went, you can let your partner know, or even yourself, I have a desire for a massage right now. I have a desire to kiss you. I have a desire to be held while I cry. Just begin to use that sentence stem and you will see more desires coming forward, and then you'll start to see real shifts in your life.
So good. Okay, I'm also thinking about chapters of life. Like you mentioned motherhood, and oh man, I remember when I had a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old at home and I was working, it was intense. But then also there's this chapter of perimenopause and menopause. Where there's a very new expression. I always use the analogy of the caterpillar is in the chrysalis and it's goo. Kind of like, what's this new body? And I'm having hot flashes and I can't sleep and my body is changing, and maybe there's vaginal dryness and the libido is all over the place. Maybe there's new irritability, menstrual cycle is changing. Any advice from the perspective of sensuality from a sexologist for this specific chapter of change during, say, age 40 to 60, that perimenopause and menopause chapter?
Absolutely. I'm in it. So I'm 51 and I'm in perimenopause. So I love talking about this and actually sharing all the things I wish someone had told me. And sexuality in perimenopause and in the menopause years, I say, keep the wheels greased, ladies. Like, keep it going. Use it or lose it. Like, whether you have vaginal dryness or a loss of libido, and like libido, we have this misunderstanding about libido for women that it should be spontaneous. And maybe it was when you were younger and you had higher levels of testosterone and higher levels of everything and more energy. But libido is actually responsive for women. So give yourself something to respond to and stay in a pleasure practice. So keep self-pleasuring, and whatever that looks like or feels like for you. That's really important for your hormonal regulation, for your oxytocin, for your dopamine. It's like your vitamin. So when it comes to sexuality, like, you might get a new sex toy, something you've always wanted to try or something that you love. You might take a class on self-pleasuring. You might keep having sex with your partner and begin a new, what I call, initiation ritual. Like, however you used to bid for sex or your partner made a bid for sex, that should change as you mature and as you evolve. And maybe you have a new way of approaching each other and making a bid for sexy time. And maybe your sexy time will start to look different than it used to. Maybe there's less penetration, more foreplay, more costumes and role play. Like, it's time for a reinvention. It's not a time to die in your sexuality, my ladies. It's a time to reinvent that. And there's a whole world of subtlety and sensation and different kinds of orgasms that will become available to you, in part because of the hormonal shifts. So, number one advice, I really want to buck the system and say, it is not a time to abandon your sexual being. It's a time to re-engage it full force in a new and exciting way. You can rewrite this chapter.
So good. And I can help you with your hormones too.
That too. Yeah.
Because there is some validity to maybe you need a little bit of extra DHEA, or find ways to bring the testosterone up, or not be dumping out so much estrogen through your methylation. Anyway, I'm going to stay focused on this conversation. All right. So I often hear and I can relate to women with a history of sexual abuse and or stories and feelings around shame and guilt in the whole, like, I think of this region of sensuality, sexuality, receiving abundance, listening into our intuition. It all feels very synonymous. So I'm wondering, if where does a woman start in her healing if really the first thing that comes up for her is old trauma or feelings around guilt and shame?
Yes. So I need to make a disclaimer. First of all, get yourself into some really good trauma therapy. That's very important. But the other recommendation I make for women in this situation, which is so common, and if this is true for you, again, you are not alone. You know, it's like 1 in 3 women or something have had an experience of sexual violation. And so if deep shame and trauma is coming up for you around sexuality, let's dial it down a notch and start with sensuality. And Maraya, I know you're a big fan of that, and you teach that a lot in the Women's Vibrancy Code. So we get a good dose of like what really is sensuality. And it's kind of a vague word and it's used a lot, but it's actually, in my opinion, a way of embodied mindfulness, like mindfully tracking sensations in your body. Sexual abuse and sexual violation is often survived and coped with by a numbing of the body or tuning out of sensation because it's a way that you have survived the experience. And so to bring that sensation back online is the first step. So even like doing what I call a self-love shower, just literally caressing your own body. And Maraya has a wonderful meditation about this in her program. So you would get to enjoy that if you join. But beginning to re-engage your body in a way that is loving, in a way that is kind, and so that you become actually your own healer. And I want to say you don't need to rush into like having porn sex. You don't need your sex to look like necessarily what you think other women are doing. Your sexuality is your sexuality. And maybe for you, the most erotic thing is to have your scalp massaged or your hair petted or your feet massaged. And you can start there. And I work with many, many women who want to bring their sexuality back online, but they go into a reactive state when they try. So we have to titrate that down and begin with the sensations that actually engender safety inside of your experience. And then eventually we can begin to build and build and build that.
And many of us need a variety of ways to address the underlying feelings. And the guilt and shame can be there even without a history of sexual trauma. I mean, I think it's for some reason, like I remember one time you said this, and it's so profound for me. Pudendal, meaning the nerve that innervates the pelvic region for both men and women.
Mm-hmm.
The Latin origin of this word, pudendal, is to be ashamed of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Specifically, it connects the clitoris to the brain.
So our connection with pleasure from a sensual perspective is at the foundation of the word chosen, is infused with shame.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So much progress for us. What a phenomenal opportunity.
Yeah, yes. And it takes, developing what I call a sex positive mindset, meaning sex is good for you. It's a vitamin, it's a nutrient. Sex is good, it's healthy, it's normal, it's wonderful. And so our work is to begin aligning the consciousness and the mindset into that framework that you're worthy and deserving of all the love and pleasure. And sex is a wonderful part of being human.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think about from a hormonal perspective, just oxytocin alone. I mean, like when you give birth, for those mothers out there, oxytocin is at the highest in your life at that point. It helps you bond and fall deeply in love with your baby. It's what we experience when we have orgasms, but there's so many other hormones that come alive in the midst of pleasure and ecstasy. And Eva talks about that within the Women's Vibrancy Code as well. What about the anatomy of pleasure? I love what you teach on this topic. It seems there's a lot that is not taught about the actual female anatomy and the arousal system. And I often hear women wonder if their labia are normal or if their clitoris is small or if they smell normal. And, I always refer to the vagina as a Rubik's Cube. Can you just give us some kind of foundational education around the female anatomy in the context of our sensuality and sexuality?
Absolutely. This is one of my favorite things to teach, and I find that it's just core. There's so much in our anatomy that has been left out of Western medical books. And, just things that we never learn about our own pleasure system. Like, how does our arousal system actually work? What does the interior structure of the clitoris look like? And there are all of these secret spots, bells and whistles, I call them, on our anatomy that we're not even touching. Usually in our sexuality, like there's the clitoris, there's the introitus, there's the vaginal opening. And that's pretty much all we typically work with. But there's a whole landscape of erectile tissue that we're missing out on. So what I like to teach is like where to actually find these bells and whistles on your anatomy, to find it yourself. And you will begin to feel all kinds of new sensations like, ooh, wow, like I never knew my body could do that. So we find the erectile network around the vulva and inside of the vulva. And then I teach you how to actually awaken that and stimulate that so that you have more circulation and blood flow in the vulva. So more circulation and blood flow in the vulva means it's going to feel a lot better. There's just more pleasure.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it also makes me think, you've said a woman's erogenous zone is her entire body.
Yeah.
To be reminded that, so often in a patriarchal model, I think, men think, oh, I'm ready, go for the bullseye. That you've talked about the arousal system for the female being responsive, meaning like all day long.
Mm-hmm.
He makes you tea and sends you a sweet or she sends you a sweet text in the middle of your work week, and you had the time to actually take a shower and put on some clothing that feels really lovely for the fabric, and all of it, what we're feeling, what we're smelling, what we're seeing, what we're hearing throughout the entire day, playing a significant role in this whole conversation.
Yes, absolutely. So if you're watching or listening to this, I want you to think about if this has ever been true for you. You've had a long day at work, or you're mothering or raising the kids, getting everyone to school, doing all the things that you do in your life. And then it is nighttime and your partner makes a move on you. Let's say you're already are in bed or you're winding down and he or she wants to get frisky. And you're like, no way. I'm so tired. How am I possibly going to get myself in the mood? So this is a style of sexuality that does not work for the majority of women. The vast majority of women will not respond to this. Most of us need flirtation. We need anticipation. We need erotic tension. We need relaxation. We need safety. So the way that I train the women in the Women's Vibrancy Code to train their partner in this is that you need to keep flirting. Like, flirting is not just for single people. Flirting is even more important when you're partnered, and learning what turns each other on in terms of your flirtation. And you begin to build a fire, and your erotic connection is a fire that needs to be tended. Even your own eros is a fire that needs to be tended. You need to keep putting logs on that fire. You need to blow and stoke that fire. And so forget about expecting to just like switch on the sexy time so that you can fall asleep faster. No, like, you gotta let that build. You have to let that sort of simmer in your system, and you need something to look forward to. Mm-hmm. One of my mentors I had the great privilege of training with early on in my career is Esther Perel. And she often talks about how women don't necessarily stop wanting sex because they just stop wanting sex. They stop wanting sex because they don't want the sex they believe is available to them. Mm-hmm. So that might need a revision also. How to ask your partner for what you really want in a way that enrolls them into the sexy, playful adventure of trying new things in your sexuality. And that might look like, hey, I really love it when you do the dishes because I can relax and feel sexier when all the things are put away first. Mm-hmm. That's often foreplay for a woman. Mm-hmm. All the things are taken care of.
And it's healing in the place of receiving.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I want to honor your time. Any last parting thoughts or words?
I want to say to you, my sisters, please prioritize your health, your body, your wellness, your sexuality, your hormones. We're here to support you in that. You are important. You are worth it. You are deserving of it. You are the best investment that you can make. And I want to see you, and I know Maraya too, we want to see you strong and thriving and vital and healthy and rocking your world and your family and your mission. So please make yourself the priority.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cheers to that. All
Yeah.
right. Thank you for your time. I will see you over in the Women's Vibrancy Code. Are you in
Yeah.
Hawaii? Are you in Hawaii?
I'm in Kauai. Aloha. Yes,
Oh.
I am.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Much love. Bye, everybody.
Wasn't this episode amazing? Let's distill it down to key takeaways and action steps.
All right, everyone. So yummy, juicy conversation, and an important conversation, and a conversation that maybe leaves you, I don't know, maybe some of you have sweating palms. Maybe you're reframing lots of stories from the past, lots of thoughts, and giving you new ways to think. We talked about the erogenous zone, the entire body, a female arousal system being responsive rather than spontaneous, right? What does abundance feel like? So, there's so much. This conversation is a really important conversation because, yes, I want you to be having an ecstatic, sensual, and sexual experience in your life and in your loving relationships. But it's also around creating abundance, right? Being able to pull in more abundance of love, careers that make you feel turned on, loving relationships with your children and with your girlfriends and with your coworkers and with your family members, looking yourself in the mirror with reverence and respect, knowing that more is coming, bringing in the abundance of money and the things that you want to manifest in your life. I really strongly believe that we root in and we heal the underlying stories and trauma and hiding that's happening within our sexual experience. So I want you to think about, what does abundance feel like for you? If you allowed yourself to be in a place of desire, not all of the chatter of the reasons why it's too much, or if you were taught, you don't speak until you're spoken to, you don't be so loud, you can't ask for everything, right? What if instead you could simply lead from a place of total desire and abundance was there? The universe knows one word, and that's yes. So if you could speak to the abundance that you're wanting to cultivate and bring to you, pull to you in your life, and the universe said yes, what does that feel like? Alison Armstrong talks about pumpkin hours being that time in the day where it turns midnight and Cinderella, the beautiful dress, turns to the rags, and the carriage turns back into the pumpkin. So what are your pumpkin hours? The times when you almost feel a little bit resentful if your partner wants to instigate sensual touch. For me, beyond 1 o'clock in the morning, I get really resentful if he wants to wake me up. Or if I'm like really in my creative zone working and he's giving me the look, I'm like, that doesn't work for me. I'm in my zone. And then I feel kind of resentful. So think about, what are your pumpkin hours versus your dessert? What are those things where even if you're not hungry, if somebody offers you a brownie, you're going to eat it? So in regard to thinking about what really turns you on, your dessert, Eva mentioned a foot rub or someone giving you a scalp massage. Maybe you're like, I hate my scalp being touched. Don't touch my nipples. Whatever it is for you, what is your dessert? The thing that even if you're not hungry, you will consume. And the more you understand that, if you were in partnership, please share that with your partner, okay? And that way he or she better understand when they are wanting to instigate lovemaking, and they understand what are your pumpkin hours, and the fact that your arousal system is responsive, meaning an all day kind of build up experience, and then they want to offer you dessert. Well, maybe they know what that is for you. Feeling passion is not earned, it is essential. Okay, it is mandatory. There's no other option. Okay. If you want to feel more energized, if you want your hormones to be balanced, if you want to feel more connected and more excited about your life and more excited about your future, passion, my friend. And I love how Eva said it can be done in microdosing, just 10 seconds. Can you allow yourself to settle for 10 seconds with, I actually really like the way that the cushions in this chair feel on the back of my thighs. I can look outside and see the texture of the clouds right now with the blue, and I can relish in the beauty. And it's coming from a place of passion. Remember, it's not just orgasmic, right? It's taste and smell and touch and feel. It's all of it. Cortisol is kryptonite to the libido. Okay. Remember, the stress response, if you were in fight, flight, or freeze, the body is not worrying about whether or not you are going to be aroused. Okay. So if we are in high vigilance, high stress, cortisol being pumped out, maybe it's just from high inflammation in your body, eating toxic food, breathing the wrong air, not drinking filtered water, the nuances that are happening, old trauma that are bringing your cortisol perpetually up, that is getting in the way of your arousal. And these stories of worthiness, I am worthy of. I encourage you to write things down. I am worthy of. I am worthy of greatness. I am worthy of being loved. I am worthy of the financial abundance that I'm wanting to create. I am worthy of friendships that feel fulfilling. I'm worthy of feeling a sense of belonging. I'm worthy of a beautiful body, feeling light in my body, letting go of these extra pounds if that's something that you desire. I'm worthy of having a great night's sleep, of feeling respected by my children. I mean, we could go on and on and on. What are you worthy of? Okay. Some adaptogens that are great in this conversation, Shatavari and ashwagandha are two. And obviously, I'm not your provider. If you decide to come into the infrastructure of the Women's Vibrancy Code, we get to fine tune and finesse the supplementation and what you're going to eat and how you're going to eat it and when you're going to eat it, and also some specific adaptogens for you. But at least to start out with drinking an adaptogen elixir each day. So what I want you to know is you're worthy of feeling like you have more time. You're worthy of the financial abundance and beyond that you're wanting to create and pull to you. You are worthy of receiving love. You're worthy of receiving. You're worthy of prioritizing yourself and feeling like you're a priority and investing in yourself with time, energy, and money. You're worthy of deep, loving relationships where your love language can be expressed freely and your voice can be spoken. You're worthy of feeling safe. All right. Good stuff. So cheers to you. Cheers to your journey. Thank you for being present. Thank you for prioritizing you. I honor the time that we're spending together because we all get to make choices in how we spend our time. And so thank you for sharing this time with me. And here we go. Cheers to moving from exhausted to energized, balancing your hormones and feeling turned on by your life, your lover, and yourself.
Thank you for listening to the Women's Vibrancy Code. Connect with us and take the first step to transforming your energy, hormones, and libido at thewomensvibrancycode.com. Cheers to your zest and vitality. Make sure to follow for weekly power-packed value.